The New York Post editorial board weighing in on the turmoil. Its headline, Democrats' civil war continues and Biden has no way to end it except surrender. Jason Chaffetz is a former Utah congressman and a Fox News contributor. Jason, what do you think is the die cast here for Biden?
I think it is. I was really smiling on that Chad Pergram report because as a member of Congress, walking from hall to hall and room to room, the last thing you want to be doing is saying, is your candidate fit for office? And then having to go on the record. They're getting that same drumbeat at home. They are not profiles encouraged. If they think at this point there's still more information that some advisor is going to give them. And why is it all about winning an election? What is it about? Why isn't it about the good of the country and the good of the presidency? I mean, this guy still has 6 months left in his presidency, and his ability to move 4 years forward. Somebody make a proactive case that he's got 4 years and 6 months left in him. I haven't heard that.
So there's a lot of intrigue around this particular aspect of this today. Politico has got a headline that says, what Obama and Pelosi are doing about Biden. The former speaker created a furor when she seemed to soften her support of the president's re-election bid. And then after that comment, she lashed out at a reporter who asked her about it. Listen to this.
I want him to do whatever he decides to do. And that's the way it is. Whatever he decides, we go with.
Do you believe that him waiting so long to make this decision
I'm not making any comments in the hallway about the fate of our nation. Okay?
Are you concerned whether or not he can win in November?
I think he can win in November.
Do you believe he should run for re-election?
I'm not speaking English to you. I'm not going to be making any statements about any of that right now in the hallway.
Yes, we never talk about anything in the hallway. And when it comes, Jason, to Obama world, it looks like the pile-on is on. Here is longtime Obama advisor David Axelrod, former speechwriter John Favreau, and 2008 campaign manager David Plouffe.
I think very significant. Nancy Pelosi is a very deliberate person. She says what she wants to say. She never says what she doesn't want to say. She said that for a reason.
The president does respect Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, all of these people around him that he's served with for years. I still believe that Joe Biden would make what I think would be a very courageous, honorable decision to say, I want to, finish out my job as president here in the next couple of months, but I want to pass the torch to the next generation.
It's kind of a DEFCON 1 moment. They're 3 years apart. They seemed about 30 years apart tonight, and I think that's going to be the thing that voters really wrestle with coming out of this.
And MSNBC anchor Joe Scarborough going right to the heart of it this morning. Listen to this.
What's going on behind the scenes is the Biden campaign and many Democratic officials do believe that Barack Obama is quietly working behind the scenes to orchestrate this.
So this goes back, Jason, to that moment at that big fundraiser in L.A. 3 weeks ago, where Barack Obama grabbed Joe Biden by the hand, led him off stage, put his hand on his shoulder, then put his hand on his back. And a lot of people looked at it and said, why did Obama do that? And then all of this happens.
Well, he had to do it. The reality is that this is not a condition that came on in the last few weeks. And these are not, the Clooney op-ed and whatnot. These are not profiles encouraged. They saw this up close and personal, and shame on them for allowing him to continue on in this state. They've known this for months, if not years, that this is a problem. I think they saw that State of the Union and said, wow, he can read a teleprompter. I think we'll be okay. But they all knew that he couldn't. And the idea that Joe Biden is going to make this decision, I mean, that's the question, is his cognitive capability to actually understand reality. That is at the heart of this issue. And why don't they allow the doctors and be candid about that? Where is Jill Biden and Hunter Biden? And shame on them. And the media, they never did their job. This has been an issue for years. And only on Fox would you actually see the stories and see it for yourself.
Well, according to a lot of reports we're hearing, both Hunter Biden and Jill Biden are the ones who are encouraging Joe to stay in. George Clooney's stunning high-profile call for Biden to step aside is just the start of Hollywood abandoning the president. Actors Rob Reiner and Michael Douglas also calling on Biden to drop out. Former senior advisor David Axelrod saying this.
Clooney, who just hosted a major fundraiser for the president a few weeks ago in California, said you can't win the battle against time. The Joe Biden I was with 3 weeks ago, the fundraiser was not the Joe Biden of 2010. He wasn't even the Joe Biden of 2020. He was the same man we all witnessed at the debate. That is devastating. That's devastating.
And then a new report says that Clooney actually told former President Obama before his op-ed was published about what he was going to write, and Obama reportedly had no objections. Critics say Clooney's call was too late, since he said that he had seen Biden's decline at the fundraiser that he hosted back in mid-June. A new op-ed headlined, quote, "There is nothing honest about George Clooney's Biden op-ed." Barstool Sports founder Dave Portnoy tore into the actor today. Listen here.
If all these people, Clooney, Chuck, whoever, everybody knew that this man is basically a vegetable, why would you ever let him do that debate unless you want to show the world that he's gone and get rid of him? So it's shameful. And the crazy part is, I think a lot of people, I said this in the rant, you could say, is Trump versus a head of lettuce? And people hate Trump so much, they may still vote for the head of lettuce.
So there's a lot to unpack here, Jason, but we got to do it quickly. It's why did they have the debate early? Was it to show that Biden was not competent? Why did George Clooney wait 3 weeks to do it? Has he ignited an implosion that's going to create a chain reaction? And is Obama really behind all of this?
Well, I think Barack Obama is still the leader of the party. He is the one. Those people are not going out there writing op-eds, talking the way they're talking without the tacit approval of President Obama. He's the one that gave us Joe Biden. He's the one who said he was in the second in command. Now, I realize he got behind Hillary Clinton and pushed that, and she failed. But then when Joe Biden was there, I think he's known this is a problem for a long time. I'm ashamed of him for not dealing with this last year. And now these people want to bypass democracy. The saviors of democracy want to give all that up and allow some party elites to pick somebody else. And I don't think that's going to go over very well. You don't get a redo.
Well, we'll see, because they just might. Jason Chaffetz, great to catch up with you. Thank you.
Hey, everyone. I'm Emily Campagno. Catch me and my co-hosts Harris Faulkner and Kaylee McEnany on Outnumbered every weekday at 12 p.m. Eastern, or set your DVR. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page for daily highlights.